I want to talk about my day job, which is that I'm a medical herbalist. I interview people about their health problems, doing any physical examination that's necessary, which is things like taking blood pressure, listening to their heart, eliciting reflexes, deep tendon reflexes, that kind of thing. Then I give lifestyle advice and prescribe and dispense herbs. Now, herbs obviously can be in various forms. One of the forms is this kind of thing. That's dried buku, which is used for urinary infections. And another form, which is more common, is the tincture. A lot of people describe themselves as brown bottle herbalists. This is basically the herb dissolved in alcohol and water mixed together, although there are other forms of tincture. And people will take it like that, in boiled water, and it will treat their problem. I usually mix about 5 herbs together. Now, as far as my training experience is concerned, I've been practicing as a herbalist now for 13 years. Training that I did was a full-time course equivalent to a degree that lasted about 5 years and included something like 750 hours of clinical practice. Basically the same as a medical degree. The first 3 years at least of a medical degree, the pre-clinical stuff, covering anatomy, physiology, physical examination techniques, history taking, medicine, pathology, and then adding other things such as pharmacology, standard pharmacology, botany, and so forth. Now, I want to move on now to the question of efficacy. In a sense, I think it doesn't matter whether it works or not, but as it happens, it does work. Now, the thing is, I might want it to work because I'm in denial about it and I'm experiencing cognitive dissonance. I would say firstly that those are not scientific understandings of how the mind works, although I think that they probably do occur for some people, but they will occur equally on both sides, on people who are sceptical about herbalism and people who are sceptical about orthodox medicine. However, there is evidence from my experience that it does work. For example, if I take somebody's blood pressure and I'm treating them for blood pressure, it will be higher. It will then go down steadily as I treat them until it reaches a much healthier state. If I'm treating somebody for asthma, their peak flow will go up. Everything about my experience of what I'm doing indicates that herbalism appears to work. Now, there is plenty of research which appears to show that herbalism is ineffective. When you look at this research, it's interesting because it tends to be very poorly designed. In particular, it has poor ecological validity and it has a tendency to be very non-specific about the nature of herbal remedies. They seem to think that just buying herbal tablets over the counter is what we're about, and it's nothing to do with that. I mean, if you buy tablets, they're going to be rubbish. They are going to be exposed to oxidation, to mould, they're going to be affected by the drying process, and they may be standardized extracts or they may be very low in particular things. I personally think that the burden of proof is on the person who says that herbalism doesn't work, because my experience tells me that it does, and also it would be strange if it didn't, because it's a form of nutrition. Clearly, if you smoke a cigarette, it has a profound physiological effect. If you have a cup of instant coffee, it has a profound physiological effect, and so forth. So why would herbalism not work? It sort of suggests that plants are not nutritious, not food, and don't have any effect, and there's no reason to suppose that they wouldn't have an effect. However, I actually think the biggest issue in herbalism is that it can't be financially viable as a profession. You cannot make a living, more or less, it's impossible, as a herbalist. I think that it's unethical for educational institutions to give people the impression that it isn't. People should be warned, first of all, it can only be used as a general degree. You will not make a living this way. So, how do you deal with that? Well, look at it this way. Herbalism is not a complementary or alternative therapy. Herbalism is a form of self-sufficiency. It's a way that you can improve and maintain your own health through plant remedies if necessary. Also, there's nothing special about herbalism that separates it from other forms of therapy. It is a form of therapy that works. It doesn't work for some people, then you try something else. I actually think it's deeply immoral for anybody to suggest that herbalism is a way of making a living. You can't make a living that way. Nobody should pretend that you can. The people who do make a living out of herbalism do it by teaching or writing books or by running continuing professional development workshops. They don't make a living from seeing patients, and in fact it may even be immoral to see patients to some extent, because then you're encouraging their dependency upon you. In order to deal with that, you need to treat it as an educational experience for the patient. You need to help the patient to stand alone and support their own health. Now, there are some circumstances under which people would need help because they haven't got the energy, they haven't had the opportunity and so forth to improve and maintain their own health. These people do need help. They don't necessarily need help from a herbalist. That's what I do. I believe it works. I also believe it doesn't necessarily matter if it works, but that's another story. I think that there is an ethical question with persuading people to become herbalists because they can't support themselves unless they exploit other herbalists or other people who want to become herbalists. I also believe it isn't a form of alternative or complementary therapy. It's actually a form of self-sufficiency. And I think also that it is immoral to encourage clients to become dependent upon herbalists, and therefore we have to see our role as educational, and also we learn from them as well as them learning from us. So it's my day job. It's something I make just about scrape a living doing, but I wouldn't recommend it to anyone. It is, however, very rewarding, very interesting, and I love it. But I also hate it because there is no way out. It's like a deep dark hole that drags down all your resources and your energy and destroys your soul. So I am going to talk more about herbs in future, and I'm going to show you herbs and that sort of thing, but I'm not going to do that now. So basically, I love herbalism and I hate herbalism.